Arias. I am the retail banking global lead for Red Hat. I'm based in Madrid when I'm not traveling because as mentioned, I have a global role within Red Hat. We're going to speak today about a use case of something that we expect is going to be very useful for the financial services sector. And we are going to speak also about the value of the open source AI, which is especially relevant for financial services, as transparency is very important in models, in the data that is being used for training those models, and the methodology for those. So let me pass the floor to my friend Nicolas. Nicolas, please, could you please introduce yourself?
Yeah, hello. So I am Nicolas Sanson, very pleased to be there and to introduce myself. So I'm working for an IBM business unit called Promontory, and the purpose of Promontory is to assist financial institutions in their compliance journeys from continuous compliance to remediations.
Thank you, Nicolas. Thank you so much. And so let's go to the point and let's speak about the problem we are going to speak about and the solutions we are seeing now. So as most of the people working in banking know, there are like two big categories of risk, right? The first one is financial risk, that is like the traditional. Traditional doesn't mean that is legacy, something very obviously super important, and it's essentially about all the risk around the liquidity and solvency, that the short-term risk and longer-term risk. This is one of the main categories. The other one is the non-financial risk, so operational risk, that are many of the flavors of those risks. Compliance risk, legal risk, for instance, if the contracts are not properly covering the legal aspects of the thing you are doing, vendor risk aspects, especially now in this time that technology companies are becoming so important in banking, and some other risks. So this is the operational risk. There is a specific control framework to control those risks. Control means identify, assess, mitigate, monitor, and some other things. And essentially, this control framework is the set of policies, procedures, processes to kind of the playbook for those to control those risks. This is something very important in a bank. A bank has this control framework for this non-operational, non-financial risk, operational risk. And then when the bank prepares this playbook, this control framework, normally it takes into account all the historic knowledge, obviously all the regulations applying to banks. And then the bank has this snapshot. But then it becomes very complex because new regulations arrive, amendments to previous regulations, also the learnings from the bank, because as you are running the bank, you see how you can improve those those operational risks. So you incorporate them to risk control these new things. So then maybe in a few months, this very clean set of procedures, processes, and policies becomes kind of, in terms of having a simile with technology, like a spaghetti code. Like you end up with many things, many documents, and this becoming super complex. And that this is a relevant problem in banking, because when a new regulation or something you need to change in the control framework arrives, it's not something easy. It's not something that you can take somebody or a team of people without experience or knowledge necessary to understand regulation, understand the control framework, and do the amendments or the new version. Then is when, so this is like the big problem, and then is when we have a Nicolas here to share with us, how right now Promontory is addressing this thing to accelerate and to make this easier for customers.
Yeah, absolutely, and this is part of the tasks of Promontory. So to assist since more than 20 years financial institutions in their compliance framework updates, exactly as you said. And few years ago, we take the opportunity of artificial intelligence to leverage our skills and and create an assistant, so powered by AI, GenAI, and categorization to help first our consultant to deal with the situation you just explained. Because on one side, so you have that the control framework, sorry, which contains mostly procedures, rule, governance, control points. So it's very complex, and it has to mitigate lots of things internally within the financial institutions, and also it has to be aligned with the new legislations which appears. And this is here. So we developed that assistant. We call it Promontory Watch. And the purpose of that assistant is to take information, first the legal information, so a new law, a new governance, a new guidelines which has been published, and try to map those new obligations to the control framework. But what we did also is not to create just a chatbot, but really to create an assistant to help first our consultant, and now we are delivering those to financial institutions as well. So that assistant to financial institutions to help the compliance dated. And the game changer here, that's he decided to go that way 2 years ago. That's the arrival of generative artificial create the audit trail, the compliance audit trail, which is mandatory mapping obligation with the control framework. So that's really here that's really what we create since now 2 years, as I explained. So as a first step for our internal consultant, and now we propose that also for the financial institutions themselves. And that's the reason why we are very happy to work with you, Hector, and Red Hat to create and use the ecosystem of Red Hat for the artificial intelligence.
Thank you, Nicolas. And one of the, so this is indeed something that is going to help a lot banks. It's going to accelerate, it's going to make it easier to update, to improve, to avoid the redundancies in the control framework and these kind of things. This is a huge step. What we are going to do in the next iteration is to leverage the power of open source AI. And let me use the two components we are thinking about for the people that are hearing us. The first one is using Instruct Lab. So the normal approach for this GenAI project is any GenAI project is one is to use RAG to specialize a generic LLM and to use regulation, for instance, or controls, vectorize them and use them in a vector database in RAG. This is one of the approach. The second approach is to just to fine tune the generic LLM. that is like you have this generic LA, you put, for instance, regulations or whatever, and you mix everything and you have a new LLM. But this is a big kind of challenge in the second option because, so in terms of the size of the LLM, so it's quite difficult that you don't have two. Regulation is large, and we mentioned before, but it's becoming larger and larger, and today it's like 43% larger the number of words than in the previous versions. But so it's becoming more complex, but it's not enough to move the needle in a LLM. But what we are going to use in the next iteration for this solution is using InstructLab. That is a different methodology. So instead of changing the whole model, so in terms of fine-tuning the whole model, what InstructLab does is to allow us to create a taxonomy. So all the components we want to classify, in this case, regulations and everything. So we create a taxonomy, and then for each of the elements, for instance, in this example, we are talking today, operational resilience, DORA, for instance, DORA regulation, we create for some regulations, we suggest specific controls, and maybe 10, 20, not more. And then what we are going to do is use this generic LLM, then provide regulation as the foundational knowledge, and then add these few questions and controls for specific obligations. And then the teacher model will create a lot of questions and answers on different options of controls, and we can create. We will need to do tests with that, but maybe 100, maybe 1,000, maybe 10,000 examples to then fine tune the LLM with this specific knowledge and skills. Obviously, one of the biggest assets of that is not only the methodology InstructLab, is to have expertise like Promontory has to select the right controls and the questions and answers, and to make sure that the LLM is going to be trained with the right questions and answers after the teacher model prepared them. This is one of the things. So this approach is one of the things we are going to do. The second one is to leverage OpenShift AI. OpenShift is the platform that allows you to run your applications on any infrastructure, right? With OpenShift AI, what you are doing is exactly the same with any model. It can be an open source model or a not so open model. It can be a generic model or a specialized model, predictive AI, generative AI, using accelerators, NVIDIA, AMD, Intel, etc., on the hybrid cloud, all together using the same tools, and so allowing the whole bank to use the same platform for the things that is becoming a relevant problem, the complexity and the amount of use cases using AI, generic or predictive. So this is more or less what I want to share about the open source AI, and I want to ask Nicolas what are his thoughts about this, the potential of this next iteration.
Yeah, so thanks for those explanations, Héctor, and we are very happy, and I should say excited as well to leverage. So first the InstructLab, because when we do a few 2 years ago, when we started that Promontory Watch journey, we try to fine tune the LLMs, and in fact, the amount of data available for fine tuning the LLMs was not enough, because in fact we say that there is lots of things, and the control frameworks are quite huge regarding the complexity. But regarding the size of the corpus, is not that big. And in fact, it's almost impossible to use standard and traditional fine-tuning solutions to really teach and train LLM's model to to be efficient enough for our very precise and advanced analysis. So that's exactly what we want to achieve using the Instruct Lab process, especially for one, and I would show that during the demonstration, but for one specific domain, which is the categorization, because we know that categorization in those mapping between obligation and control frameworks is the key factor. But today, we do not have enough data to teach and to teach the AI to obtain good classification. So that's really the first challenge. And the second challenge we have also to continue to make Promontory Watch more efficient is the opportunity and the possibility to jump from one LLM to another LLM, to share those LLM from hybrid structures, and be sure that we could benefit of the globality of an LLM, but also preserve the IP and the specific, I would say, recipe of doing the mapping dedicated to each financial institutions who wants to use Promontory Watch as an example. So the two directions you gave during your explanations are exactly the one we are interested in to use and to leverage within Promontory Watch.
Thank you, Nicolas. And I also want to say that, and this is potentially just the beginning, because as Promontory will be able to include many regulations, different geographies, this model has a huge potential of becoming a super helpful tool for banks globally, not in specific countries. So DORA is just the beginning, and so this is something with huge potential. And so we will have this specialized model in financial service regulation that will be able to see, to review to the control framework, and then suggest things for improvement. For instance, we have these controls that cover those obligations. That's fine, like green flag. We have these others that okay, maybe you need to do something. This is a yellow flag, and you have other controls or things that no, you have no controls to cover the other obligations. That's a red flag. And then you have this, obviously, you need super specialized regulatory experts to fix them and to make this thing. I would ask you, Nicolas, if you have a demo or something to share today.
Yeah, absolutely. I will share my screen and step by step explain what we achieved so far when we are talking about Promontory Watch. So Promontory Watch is an application using artificial intelligence, as I explained, to map obligations with control framework. So the way it works, first, we load within the system a legislation file. Of course, here it's a demonstration, it's a POC. So we load Excel files. But when we are deploying that tool within financial institution, of course, we are directly connected to GRC tool or even to law information providers. Once we select the files, the legislative files we want to work with, we load the control framework. Once again, here it's an example, and I would load the NIST, an extract of NIST control objectives, which has been published, but in real life, we are connected also to the GRC tool or control framework. And then exactly as you can see here on the screen, the artificial intelligence starts his tasks, and the first task is the classification. So we take the obligation on one side, the control framework on the other side, and we apply a classification. And it's a key factor because that classification is the place where we could understood, or the system could understood, if it talks about the same things or not at all. Once the classification is done, we do the mapping, and after the mapping, the gap analysis. And this is the result, the first result you can see here. Though we have the obligation reference displayed on the screen. Then there is the categorization. So the categorization is the one used by Promontory. So we call it the term, and this is a taxonomy dedicated to ICT. And here, as you explained, Hector, so Promontory has an history of 20 years of categorization of more than 200 regulators worldwide, and all the legislations they published. So we have that library of existing categorization. Then you have the text of the obligation and the assumption of the coverage. And what is very important here is that because it's an assistant, as I said, everything is changeable. And here, the analyst, the compliance analyst, could decide to change the term which is suggested by the system. And once it changed, then the mapping and the gap analysis could be rerun. Once you set that first part, then you deep dive in the mapping. And here, so as you can see on top of the screen, you have the obligation. So this is the part of the legislation which has been passed, and this is that part which would be mapped with the control. So before reading the control, it's very important to read the analysis which has been provided by the artificial intelligence. And in that case here, the system explains that the controls covers part of the thing, but they do not specifically address the data governance and management practices for training, validation, and testing data sets. So here, very precisely, the assistant propose way to update the control framework and explain what is missing. More specifically, above the partial coverage assumptions, which has been calculated by Promontory Watch, you have clearly suggestions to update the control to increase the coverage of the obligation by the control framework of which has been loaded in that case. And then you found again the two classification. What is also quite important here is that we keep as a backlog some controls which are related to the obligation, but based on the system, they do not actively cover the obligation. And when we do our test and we set the solution for the first time, it really helps the analyst to increase the coverage by manual assumption and say, okay, I push back using the thumbs up here, so that button, I include within the controls which participate to the coverage, I include that because I consider, based on my knowledge, on what I know and so on, it's very important to have it. So we also have that part which is very important. And then you can see that the system explain why the control has been set as an unrelated. If we go back now on the accurate, so the controls which has been selected by Promontory Watch to cover the obligation, you see here you have the list of those controls. So you have to review them manually. And if you disagree with the solution, you can use the thumbs down to change and remove that from the mapping, sorry. And then, of course, based on the suggestion of the system, you can create new controls. And here, so I have created control in advance. And I just copy and paste those two the controls which I consider are missing based on the indication provided by the solution. So here you see it's very easy to create new controls, and then you run again the coverage analysis, and you see that everything is recalculated live on the use of the new control you just insert. And you see now, based on the two new controls you add, there is a full coverage, and there is the analysis here, and it explains, as you can see, that the two controls .1 and .2 participate to the coverage, and it's fully covered. And if you remember, at the beginning of that presentation, I explained the most important thing when we are using Promontory Watch is to create that compliance trail, and exactly as explained Héctor as well, to ensure the traceability of everything, every change which has been done. It is recorded everywhere, and then there is a button to export what you validated, to update any GRC tool you need, and then you switch from just a mapping to a proof of what has been done. And this is one of the requests of a regulator. So that's a short demonstration of what we achieved so far using Promontory Watch as a POC. So for that demonstration purposes, there is lots of new features we are currently working on, such as parsing of the legislation, increase the suggestion of new controls, propose frequency of the controls, scoring of the controls, and all that stuff. And that's the reason why, and that's the purpose of that webinar and the joint work we have started with Red Hat to leverage, as it has been said previously, first the Instruct Lab, and we really consider Instruct Lab as a key features to help us to train the LLM without with small, I would say, with small amount of data, and then also so the OpenShift AI to create. I could say, even if it's probably not the right technical word, but to create LLM as a services.
Thank you so much, Nicolas. I'm super excited about this tool and the potential it has for the industry. I've been more than 20 years working in banks in different countries, in large banks, and I had the privilege to work in innovative things, and I can totally see the value of this tool, because it was so frequent for in the banking life when you're doing initiatives, and when you are working with obviously the first and second line of defense in the risk management, the structure of banks, how this having a control framework updated and easy to understand is super important for them, the lines of defense, the first and the second, and for, in my case, I had a business role, and for us, for the business. So I totally see the huge value that this is going to bring to to the industry. And for the ones watching this session, what I say is that both Promontory, IBM Promontory, and Red Hat, we are in the proof of concept mode. So we are with a few short list of customers that are testing this technology with us. So what I suggest, if anybody that is watching us is interested and is working, we are starting with a European Union with specific regulations in the operational resilience aspect, but if somebody is interested, so let me share with you one of the, just to make sure that you have, that we share our contact, right? You can, so don't hesitate reaching out, Nicolas, myself, or the two of us. You have the emails here, so that's going to be easy, and we will be happy to discuss if it makes sense or not, and to be part of this journey, right? That we believe that is going to be really, really important, and in a domain that is not typical, right? In NLMs, typically, like the use cases about bots and translating language, programming language, from applications, modernized applications, those things. And this is a domain that is particularly innovative and super, super useful, as I mentioned. So thank you so much for watching us, and please reach out if you have any question. Nicolas, do you want to say something?
No, I just want to thank you for letting me the opportunity to present Promontory Watch. And so you have 20 years experience in banking sector, and on my side, I have 20 years of intelligence and investigation sectors. And I think that it's a good mixture between two of us, because on my side, I work for 20 years to create evidence and proof of what has been done. And this is something which is now drastically required by the regulators of financial institutions. So thanks for that.
Thank you so much, Nicolas. Thank you so much, Nicolas, and everybody watching this session. Thank you. Bye-bye.